feed cost forms up to 70% of the total cost of production, and therefore feed is economically the single most important element of animal production. Animal feeding is central to livestock production systems because it impacts animal productivity, emission of methane and nitrous peroxide, water pollution, land use and land use change. It also impacts animal health, product safety and quality, and animal welfare. In fact, entire livestock sector and associated services are influenced by animal nutrition. Despite feed and feeding having such an important role, unfortunately, it has not attracted attention of the policymakers. As a result, full genetic potential of the animals in the field has not been realized, and animal health strategies are not as effective as they could be because of the poor nutrition. Initially, I would touch upon import of feed ingredients by Asia and its implications for the livestock industry, then move on to deficiency of feed and fodder in Asia, and the core of my presentation would be some options to enhance availability of feed and fodder and in fact of nutrients which are present in these feed resources, because at the end of the day, it is the enhanced nutrient availability to the animal which increases animal productivity. Let's look at import of feed ingredients, in particular maize and soybean, by Asia. Last year, China imported approximately 5 million tons of maize, and by 2025, it is projected to import 40 million tons. In addition to that, by 2016, import of maize distiller grains is expected to touch 6 million tons. Similarly, Thailand and Vietnam will also be importing a substantial amount of maize in 2025. In the last 20 years, import of both soybean and soya meal in Asia has risen by approximately 5-fold. Presently, soybean import by China stands at 60% of the world trade, and in the next decade, it is likely to touch 85% of the world trade, of the order of 17 million tons of soybean import only by China. So the interim message is that production of animal products in many Asian countries is heavily dependent on import of feeds. So any disruption in trade or increase in the cost of feed or extreme volatility in the cost of feed could be catastrophic for the animal industry. This strongly advocates the use of locally available feed resources, and also use of locally available feed resources will decrease carbon footprint of livestock industry. Now let's look at feed shortages. There's a huge feed shortages in Asia, and I would take the example of two countries, India and China. In 2009, shortage of feed in India was to the tune of 163 million tons of crop residue and 79 million tons of green fodder as dry matter. And by 2020, the projected shortages are 526 million tons of dry matter, green fodder as fed 855 million tons, and a concentrate shortage of 956 million tons. Same is the case with China, a huge deficiency. Let's look at 2030 feed outlook for India, China, and Asia, and I must say that these are my rough calculations. In 2030, just for the monogastric sector, India would need 9 million tons of protein. I'm talking here about protein. And China would need 8 times more. And if we have to get 71 million tons of protein, that translates to approximately 706 million tons of cereal or 176 million tons of soybean. And in 2030, the amount of protein required by the only monogastric sector, pig and poultry, would be twice as large as what we are using today. So huge shortages of protein and need of protein. And if you look at the monogastric sector, all this protein would compete with human food. So a big question arises from where we are going to get this feed, especially when we are faced with challenges like increase in population, decrease in arable land, water shortage, limited supply of phosphorus, frequent climate extremes, and so on. So I have tried to put my thoughts on various options for enhancing feed and food security in these 5 headings. First is make efficient use of available feed resources. Tap new feed resources, enhance fodder production, increase nutrient availability from the intestinal tract, and shift priority development to ruminants. There's a famous management quote: if you do not measure it, you cannot manage it. Most countries in Asia do not even have national feed inventories. National feed inventories means what and how much of feed resources and during what period of the year these feed resources are available. So generation of national feed inventories will enable these countries to formulate optimal policy and management decisions for proper planning of the livestock sector. It will enhance the efficiency and productivity of the feed industries because the feed industry will have better information from where to resource feed ingredients. It will also enhance capability of countries and feed industries to cope with emergencies. So feed can be transported from a region of plenty to region of scarcity. And also this information will improve the accuracy of estimation of greenhouse gas. So policymakers and science managers should seriously consider establishing national feed inventories. And for this, FAO has come up with a guideline document which will be available within 2 months, which will help the countries to formulate, to establish and maintain national feed inventories. Now I come to make the best use of the resources, whatever are available. And one of the options is balanced feeding, especially in context to smallholder farmers. Different levels of nutrients are required for maintenance, growth, pregnancy, milk production. So the point here is use the feed strategically based on the physiological stage and production of the animal. This balanced feeding program is being implemented in India by National Dairy Development Board of India. In this, the farmers are advised how to balance feed at their doorstep by extension workers. And the impact of this program has been that it has increased milk production by approximately 1 kg per cow, increase in milk fat, increase in income of the farmers by 10% per cow, increase in the feed conversion efficiency by 25%. It means we require less feed, 25% less feed for the same amount of milk production. Decrease in parasitic load by 58%, increase in nitrogen use efficiency by 50%. So it means less of feed nitrogen coming into manure and less of nitrous peroxide emission into the environment. Also, this study has shown decrease in enteric methane of 15 to 17%. So win-win situation for all. It has also improved the reproductive efficiency and has also improved the immune response. So consider implementing the concept of balanced feeding at smallholders level, which is a big challenge. The concept is not new, but its implementation is a big challenge. And strengthen the institutional support in terms of extension network and capacity building. If we have to prepare a balanced diet, we must know reliably what is the content of protein, vitamin, minerals, fat in the various feed ingredients. Our field observations suggest that the data which are coming from the feed analysis laboratories in Asia is not reliable and very poor. I can quote many examples where we sent the same sample to 2 different laboratories in a country in Asia. One laboratory said 17% of protein, another said 23% of protein. Now, if we have to prepare a balanced ration, which one to rely on. It's a fundamental problem. So the poor chemical composition data would lead to inappropriate feed formulation and also development of unsound and inappropriate feeding strategies. So science managers and feed industries must ensure that the quality control approaches are integrated into their various analyses in the feed analysis laboratories. And we have come up with a manual on how to integrate these quality control systems. Next is reduce losses of feed resources. Straw worth millions of dollars is being burned in many Asian countries, especially in India, north part of India. It's a valuable loss of feed resource. Also, it leads to environmental pollution. There's a need to increase the efficiency of straw picking from the field. And one of the ways by which the efficiency of use of these crop residues can be increased is to form densified total mixed ration blocks by mixing these crop residues with byproducts, minerals, and vitamins, and use hydraulic press to form the blocks. These blocks are easier and safer to transport and store, easier to feed by farmers. There's a less wastage, higher productivity, good feed for emergency situations because it can be transported very easily, and it also enables setting up of national feed grid and fodder bank. And of course, it will discourage burning of the straw. So enhanced public-private partnership will increase adoption of the straw-based total mixed ration technology. How we feed is also equally important. Feeding mixed ration has been shown to be better than feeding individual components. Increase in productive efficiency, increase in growth rate, milk, feed conversion efficiency has been recorded by feeding mixed ration, and same is the case with reproductive efficiency. So there's a need to enhance skill of the farmers to prepare mixed rations. Simple technologies such as chopping of forage reduces waste. It increases productivity. It increases feed conversion efficiency. Just making available simple chaff cutters would solve all these issues. Silage making, another effective approach. There's excess of fodder in rainy seasons, excess of vegetable and their residues in some month of the year. So again, a conservation technology, very good, increases productivity and also overcomes feed shortage during lean period. So there's a need to promote the use of silage making by capacity building and providing credits. So there's a huge loss of feed grains due to mycotoxins in Asia. According to one study, just because of presence of aflatoxin, the loss in Philippines, Indonesia, and in Thailand has been estimated to the tune of $900 million. So there's a need to improve infrastructure for storage of grains to reduce these losses. And it will also enhance animal and human welfare. Now I come to another option, tap new feed resources. For the last 2 years, we have been evaluating the potential of various co-products of the biofuel industry as livestock feed. This is a 500-page document which will be coming up within the next 2 months. It evaluates the nutritive value of a number of co-products which are coming out from biofuel industry. Nutritive value is addressed, and it also gives guidelines for safe use of various byproducts for ruminant, poultry, pig, and fish diets. Some of the novel feed resources which have been identified through this study are distillers' grains from maize, wheat, barley. So if we take 1 ton of, say, maize and produce bioethanol, we get almost 30% distiller grains and equal to the amount of ethanol produced. So it's a valuable feed source, a co-product which comes from bioethanol industry. Protein content is very high. It can substitute soybean meal. At present in Asia, only China is producing substantial amount of distillers grains. Other countries which are using distillers grains at present are Japan, South Korea, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia. All of them are importing distillers grains from US, which are produced from maize, while distillers grains in Europe are being produced from wheat and barley. Glycerol, another good source of energy. It's a byproduct from the biodiesel production chain, and we get 10% in terms of volume, the glycerol, as compared to biodiesel. So if we prepare 100 tons of biodiesel, we get 10 tons of glycerol as a feed for livestock. Other feed resources are, I'm not going to mention each of them, but I would like to highlight in context to Asia, toxic and non-toxic eutropha. In many Asian countries, Myanmar, Thailand, Indonesia, China, toxic genotype of eutropha is being planted. But there is a non-toxic eutropha as well. The oil content between toxic and non-toxic genotype is similar. The protein content is similar. Quality is also good, same. So these countries would also consider planting non-toxic genotype of eutropha because the cake is edible. It can be fed to livestock. And algae residue, intensive research work is going on use of microalgae for production of oil for biodiesel production. It could also be a future feed resource. Other novel feed resources, winter barley, very popular in north part of US and also in Canada. Now mutants are available which are low lignin and without ons. The digestibility is higher by 10% units. So increase in productivity, and also literature shows that if we increase digestibility by 10% unit, it reduces enteric methane by 20%. Thornless cactus, Azolla, Moringa oleifera. In Asia, it is known as a tree. It's a very fast-growing tree. But in Nicaragua and Mexico, it has been planted as a dense crop for fodder production. Cutting can be obtained every 45 days, and the biomass yield is of the order of 100 tons diameter per year per hectare, which is 3 times more than any known good fodder in Asia. So another good option to consider. And when we look at the quality of the leaves of the Moringa oleifera, the protein quality is as good as soybean meal. A very good potential source if we grow this not as a tree but as a fodder. Dense crop plantation. Another future potential feed resource, edible insect. Protein content is 50%. Protein quality is very high. It is rich in polyunsaturated fatty acids, iron, zinc, vitamin A. The challenge is mass production at an industrial scale. Next option is enhanced fodder availability. Cultivated land under fodder cultivation is decreasing in Asia. In India, it has decreased by approximately 10%. And the average yield of cultivated fodder in India is 40 tons per hectare. And the reason is use of poor quality seeds. The use of certified seeds in India is only 10%. So if we enhance the fodder availability, it would decrease the reliance on imported feed, and it will also decrease the cost of feed because the cost of production of per unit of protein and energy from fodder is much lower than that of cereals. A number of steps are involved in the production of certified seeds, and number of agencies are involved. In fact, there's a need to strengthen the system to produce certified and truthfully labeled seeds. And it has been shown that if you go for certified seeds, the production can be increased to 80 million tons, so double of what we get now. And also, the policies must encourage private companies to produce and market fodder seeds. At present, private industries do not see money in this area. And also develop common land for fodder production. Now I come to another aspect is that is internal parasite. It's a big problem in developing countries, including Asian countries. Valuable nutrients are taken away from the intestine by internal parasites. And in developing countries, the loss in productivity just because of the presence of internal parasites is of the order of 20%. So use anthelmintics strategically. And in order to decrease the cost of anthelmintics, there's a need to use locally available plants and herbs. Field studies conducted in Bangladesh, Philippines, and Indonesia have shown that dry pineapple leaves, when given at 200 milligram per kg body weight per day, is as effective as fenbendazole. So there are opportunities. Another is mineral deficiency. Just because minerals are not given to animals, the human cannot function optimally. And there's a decrease in the release of nutrients from the feed. So use of site-specific mineral mixtures in India has been shown to increase milk by 10 to 15%, and also the productive response of other animals has also been shown to increase. So it's a very simple technology. Encourage use of mineral mixture by farmers, which has not been practiced in most countries in Asia. Now I come to last option of shift to priority development of ruminants. Jimmy has pointed out to this option. The conventional wisdom is that monogastrics are better converters of feed to animal products. Let me challenge it a bit. Let's try to define efficiency as given here. Efficiency of animal product formation equals human edible protein product produced divided by human edible protein fed. In ruminants, we fed forages and byproducts as feed, which are human inedible. And if we define efficiency like this, then the efficiency of animal product formation by ruminants is much higher than that of monogastrics. So increase in the cost of cereals, energy, and other inputs, and increase in the competition of arable land for feed, food, and fuel might make monogastric production system uneconomical in future. So attention must shift to priority development of ruminants. Worldwide, 2 billion tons of straw is available. And if we take roughly feed conversion efficiency of 10:1, the potential is there to produce 200 million tons of live animal or 100 million tons of meat, which can support 4 billion people at 25 kg per year. And the graph is a synthesis of many publications. And if you look into this graph, just by supplementing the crop residues, which is the practice normally at present, if we supplement only 0.5% of the body weight by cottonseed meal, which just does not compete with human food, we can increase the growth rate by 3-fold. So with effective technology application, ruminant production system could possibly be a major development pathway for production of animal protein in the future. So as Jimmy pointed out, there's a lot of productivity gap in ruminants, and there are technologies, simple technologies, which would increase the productivity. So none of the solutions suggested so far, which I mentioned, can be delivered without institutional support and sound policies. Technology and institutions must work together, and policies must provide enabling environment for this. And lastly, I would say that common sense must prevail. Animal diet has the same importance for animal as human diet for humans. Animal feeding is the foundation of livestock production system, and animal breeding and animal health are two pillars. If the foundation is not strong, the pillars and the building are likely to crumble. Policymakers, science managers, and donors must not neglect animal nutrition. And I finish my presentation with this note. Thank you very much.